Hey, Tolerators, it's me, Natalie, with your before show updates on all things Team Tolerator. So, we are sitting on the January, February, March side of life. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like the misogyny meltdown over on Patreon is well underway. That is a new series and show that I am producing for Patreon members only because there is a lot of scripting and a lot of vulnerability going on. I've already sang a song, I've already produced a skit, I'm already writing comedy. So go take a chance on the misogyny meltdown and the way that To All the Men I've Tolerated Before is expanding and evolving with the link in the show notes. For January, we celebrated the Misogynist of the Year award ceremony. For February, we are focusing on the concept of love and self-love being part of the resistance. And in March, why, yes, we're still going to do seasonal things with celebrating International Women's Month. And all of that will be wrapped up into our new variety show, Misogyny Meltdown. I cannot wait for you to check it out. Hey, Tolerators, this is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, your weekly look at everyday misogyny. Today, my special guest is Kervin from 4Y Games. We were a little bit of a missed connection because while I was at Gen Con, I saw a flyer for the game, Allow Me to Mansplain, and told my family we should be on the lookout for it. There's so much that goes on at Gen Con and so much to look at that it wasn't until TikTok brought me to Kervin's videos that we actually got to connect. So welcome to the team, Kervin, and thanks for being here to talk about working towards diversity in game creation.
Thank you for having me. I love being a board game designer and I love sharing my stories, so this will be awesome.
I love it. I desperately want more friends in the gaming community in general, especially when those friends go to Gen Con, because I go every year, and every year I just end up walking around by myself.
Oh.
I know. My family goes for just the shopping and the vibe, and I'm like, what if we played a game? What if we literally did any of the things that this convention has going on? What if I meet Brennan Lee Mulligan? Come on, everybody.
I will say, though, so I was at Gen Con, I flew in from Houston for a day and a half, and then I left. And the reason why I used Gen Con for a day and a half is because one of my favorite publishers that I met on TikTok, Boardgame, they're based out of Germany. And I don't know if I'll ever go to Europe for board game stuff, and Germany's a long way from America. And they decided last minute, a week before Gen Con, that they were going to do it. And so I called her up and I said, hey, I don't FOMO, and I'm a gay board gamer. You think I would just ooze FOMO, but I don't. And I said, you're going to make me FOMO meeting you. And then she said, well, I kind of, I'm doing this event. I have a free badge. It's yours, no strings attached. You have 4 hours to tell me if you want it or not. And I said, okay. And so I looked up plane tickets, I looked up hotels. Initially, when I looked at plane tickets, it was $800 from Houston. It was ridiculous. And then when she messaged me about the free ticket, I looked, it went down to $350.
Oh my God.
So, and direct.
Direct?
Direct. So I got a hotel for a night, 2 nights, I think, and a Gen Con badge and a plane ticket, all for what I would have paid if I just bought the plane ticket 6 months ahead of time.
Oh my God. I fly out to LA on Sunday, and I'm going to be paying off that ticket for a year. But it's because I do get FOMO, and a bunch of my virtual book club friends were getting together, and I was like, me too. And they're like, you live in Ohio. And I'm like, me too.
My online board gaming group, we play on Tabletop Simulator, where people can put their games so people can play test. We play every Monday, and then we played for a year, and they said, we should all get together. And they're in New Jersey, Maryland, and upstate New York, and I'm in Texas. And I was like, okay, cool. And then they picked Virginia. So they literally everyone drove from the so like Virginia. They picked me up in Virginia, and we played board games for 2.5 days straight. Me and another guy, coincidentally another queer person of color, we just cooked the entire time, had people to eat it, and did do dishes, and played board games. That was the dream.
I have this working theory that it is virtual friends that are the most generous with their heart and time with you, because your other friends are just like always looking at you and they're like, no, we get it. We do trivia on Wednesdays. Everything's fine. But your virtual friends are like, I'm so excited to be in a room with you.
That literally, you just described my Gen Con experience. So like, I'm not a typical board game TikTok content creator. I don't do exclusively how-to videos. I don't talk about nearest like the newest hotness board game. I don't exclusively talk about the same game repeatedly. I talk about my experiences. I talk both good and bad in the industry. I talk about my journey. And so when I went to Gen Con, I fully expected people to be like, "Oh, hi, Kervin, nice to meet you." I didn't expect them to be genuinely excited to. It was my first con since I joined TikTok. It was like a year and a half, and the entire time, everyone was so nice. Like I got to the I think it's like the exposure room, the new exposure for new games, and I got there, and then like four people texted other people, said Kervin's here, get here now. I don't know where he's going to be next, and so people like ran the convention hall to like hug me and say hello. I was like, straight people are the nicest.
Okay. Well, let's not get insane. Like straight people in Indiana, not the nicest. um,
None of them are from Indiana, to be fair, though.
there you go. No, I brought friendship bracelets to Gen Con this year because I was obsessed with the Eras tour, and I have so many beads in my house that now wherever I go, I'm like, I made bracelets. It's all I do now. And people, like, my dad takes us every year, and he's used to, like, me just doing my own thing. But this year, because my uncle was also there, I ended up, like, orbiting them more. And he was just blown away that I would just walk up to someone and be like, here's a trinket. And then we would have, like, a 30-minute in-depth conversation about our hopes and dreams and favorite games and what my body felt like when I got to hug Kyle Shire, and if I thought Kyle Shire was single and needed a husband. And I'm like, maybe.
That's amazing.
I hope so. But yeah, so let's start with your journey first. Like, tell me your background and the story and all of it.
All of it? Okay. So, born and raised in Houston, Texas. I went to school in Nebraska and lived there for 10 years in Omaha. Moved back to Houston. Got into board games. And then because of work, board gaming can kind of consume your life. I had to like, give that up for a few years and then decided to bring it, to come back to it. And then the pandemic hit. And so I started to play a little bit virtually. And then I woke up in the middle of the night, which I never do because I'm a really heavy sleeper, and wanted to buy a mansplaining party game. And I would have paid whatever. And not exaggerating, there were two or three mansplaining games that were out there, but they played like trivia games.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it was just like, it wasn't funny. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't like anything worthwhile. And I like sent it to my couple sample of the cards to my friends, and I was like, "Can you make this make sense to me?" And they're like, "Kervin's because you're not the target demographic of that." I was like, "Did white men make a game for other white men that they think was funny?" And they said,
always.
"Yeah." And I was like, "What?" I love how you're like, "Oh, I should probably, yeah, yeah, yeah." But it didn't occur to me because brand new the board game stuff, right? And then I complained about it to everyone in my life for 3.5 months. And then we have a local grocery store called HEB, which is one of like the pride and joys in Texas. And I was in the like the produce aisle, ironically by the bananas. And I was like, I'm so mad. And my friend's like, well, what would your game look like? And we designed 85% of it, like all the openings of the game and the general mechanics of the game, we designed in the aisle of the grocery store. And it took me an hour and a half to leave the grocery store. I was just laughing so hard in the banana aisle, like the bananas. And then because of the pandemic, I started to work from home. We had to go in the office. My coworkers, who are mostly middle-aged Black women, were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, there's this game." And they're like, "Oh, I want to play it." So I made a prototype, and then they played it and they loved it. And they're like, "Well, when can we buy it?" And I was like, "I don't know." So I did a bunch of research, like super hardcore. I read every blog, listened to like a bunch of podcasts, watched all of YouTube, everything. And then I was like, I guess I can do this. Sure, why not? And so I like jumped headfirst. And as a joke, I said, because during the pandemic, I was like, I guess I'll join TikTok. I was like, there's no way. I don't use social media in my real life, like at all. And so, like, that was just it literally was a joke. And then it's like, it changed my life. It literally has changed my life. I I joined TikTok. I realized that maybe you don't have to do dances, and maybe I can just like be grumpy and do TikToks and see what happens. My background's in film, and so if you've done film, you've done editing, and if your degree's in film and editing, you know how OCD you can get even if you don't have OCD.
Mm-hmm.
And TikTok is not. It wasn't a platform. I mean, still isn't a platform where it has to be super polished and super. And I just wanted to get my information out there and kind of see what happens. So I literally would take a nap, wake up, and then record TikToks. And that way I wouldn't worry about edits. I wouldn't care how I looked. And uh, came across some pretty influential people in the industry who found me. Board Game TikTok maybe had 8 people when I first started. One was talking about board game design. There was like one other BIPOC person. And I said, sure, let's go. And then I have met people who've completely changed the trajectory of, I guess I'll make a mansplaining game, to I could be a content creator. I could be a publisher. I could make the industry easier for people who look more like me, who want to play games that I want to play. And I've I've been I'm going to be writing this for as long as I can.
I love it when this happens because it happens in my life too, where I will just say a sentence like, there should be a game about mansplaining. And then someone will go, it's happened on the show before where someone will go, stop. We're going to talk about that after we're done recording because that's an idea. And we don't just give ideas away at the supermarket or whatever. But making connections with the people who believe in you and support your like far-fetched statement that's an idea, and then you take it and you create a board game or a game that, when I bought Queen by Midnight, my dad was surprised because it was an expensive game. And I said, but it's the only game that I know of currently that is all female driven, and each one of those women is from a different background. And I was like, and that's why I hugged Kyle Shire when I got to like buy it. I was like, this is so important. This is so important to me. I don't get to always feel like I belong playing the board game that we're playing at Gen Con. And you're just doing really important work. And to think of how many, I'm in love with TikTok. I joke about it all the time. Like, I'm always on TikTok, but I have made such good friends through just commenting on people's videos, just being like, hey, this is great. Hey, I love this. And then just commenting becomes DMs, and I do it all the time on Instagram too. TikTok and social media is a way that I feel like, even though they keep throwing barriers up, we keep finding fun and interesting ways to like circumvent the barrier and be like, no, women's voices matter. Queer voices matter. People of color's voices matter, and we're here and we're not going away even if the algorithm says we should.
It's funny you said that, because board game TikTok, I mean, it's still relatively small as far as niches go. And I was talking to a friend at PAX, and he said, Kervin, do you ever feel like you're just making videos for the other board game TikTok content creators? And I said, all the time. All the time.
I am probably, because there's that sound that goes around on TikToks who's like, who even watches your TikToks? And it's like, I do. When I feel bad about myself, I just go through my TikTok feed and go, that's right, I am funny. And I just put it away. And it's so funny because it was something that I too, when we started this podcast, I had a co-host for the entire first season, and she ended up stepping down. And she's like, TikTok might be a great way to get the podcast out there. And I was like, I don't want to be on TikTok with the teenagers doing weird dances. I'm 32. I was 32 when the pandemic started. I was like, They're going to laugh at me and they're going to tell me that I shouldn't have adult acne anymore and I'm going to cry.
It was more of just like, you never really know. And then the more research I did, weirdly enough, made me feel comfortable. The algorithm is this crazy thing, right? That no one fully knows. You hear theories how there's like competing algorithms and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, I took comfort in knowing that TikTok wants your videos to be seen. TikTok wants to show your videos to as many people who they think might like your videos and build this community. And if you were to tell me that I would build a community of like allies on on an app where I just talked about my feelings in a car for 30 seconds at a time, it's wild to me. And then people in the board game industry, FOMO not being on TikTok, but they don't want to do the work it takes to do well on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
I hear I've heard multiple times to my face that, well, Kervin's just talking about his feelings in his car. If he can do it, I can do it. I'm like, then do it.
Then do it.
It's like, you can't tell me if it's that easy, but they discount my intention. You can't. I say all the time, and they're like, Kervin, you shouldn't say it, but I think it's true. I don't have the privilege of like just opening up an app, of like starting recording, talking about diversity the way like a straight ally does. Like they're allowed to make mistakes. They're allowed to misspeak. And they're like, well, Kervin, you put that pressure on yourself. And I said, no. Like my platform is very much my experiences because I don't want to have to deal with all the BS that all of my friends and like BIPOC and queer friends have in other spaces where they're just like screaming at people who are trolling them. And I get anxious enough. I'm hard enough on myself. I don't need other people. And there's one person I've ever blocked, and before I blocked him, he made a response saying, "If why are you making a game that's not for me?" And he's like a cishet white male. And I had 6 content creators who were all cishet white males respond to that comment and say, just because something is made for other people does not mean it's not made for you. It just means they're being included. You're more than welcome to play it, but it just might mean something and give a different experience to somebody else. And I was like, that was one of the first times I was like, I'm making a difference. There's quality people on TikTok. What is happening? It was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had.
Sometimes you can really just leave those comments alone and be like, someone will take you to task, because I've been that person on someone else's TikTok where I'm like, hey, hello, ignorant fuck. You found us. You found the people who are just trying to be chill with one another and like love. But now I'm going to have to embarrass you. So I hope you feel big. It amazes me that so I was raised by a cishet white man, and one year we went to Gen Con and there were all of these flyers up about cosplay doesn't mean consent. Yes. And then in the Gen Con program, there was an article about highlighting people of color cosplaying. And my dad was like, I don't get it. And I was like, okay, tell me. Come on. He's like, number one, Gen Con's the safest thing I've ever taken you to. So why do we have to have flyers reminding people that it's safe to cosplay? And I was like, well, number one, Gen Con is a place where I've technically always been safe, but it is not the safest place I can go. I go, and you're not with me all of the time. I go, I got out of the car this past year at Gen Con, and I was out of my dad's car for 30 seconds, walking towards the convention center. It was in sight. And I got catcalled twice. I have watched women lose their patience because guys are touching them weird for photo ops, or they won't leave them alone. And they're like, I have a ticket. I have to get somewhere. And people are getting mad because he got to take a photo, but I didn't get to take a photo. And I've stepped in and said, are you paying her? Is she paid by Gen Con? You working for Gen Con? No, she's not actually a part of your experience. You need to go. You need to move on. And my dad's like, well, I've never seen it. And I go, because you don't have to see it. That's the point. It's like, why aren't you making a game for me? And it's like, because there are already 2,200 games for you.
That come out every year.
And we're not excluding you. We're just making something different. And I know that you've talked about on TikTok that you have you're new to TTRPGs and RPGs, right?
Yes.
I have been playing TTRPGs since I was 8 years old. And before I was playing them, I was sitting at my dad's kitchen table watching cishet straight dudes play TTRPGs. I've seen everything under the sun when it comes to the cis white male experience of D&D. And this year, my uncle called it out before I could. They were sitting and they were watching me play a game, and afterwards my uncle went, "You didn't win?" And I was like, "No," because we were playing Queen by Midnight. He goes, "I really thought you were winning because the guy across from you was really mad at you for a lot of your moves." And I'm like, "They're always mad." They're just always mad at me if I've outsmarted them, if I understood the rules better, if my cards lined up more, if I, maxed out my character and they're more powerful than your character. I go, "They're always mad at me." And he's like, "I thought you were really playing it cool and you were really dealing with it nicely." I was like, "Well, that's because I don't perceive it anymore, because to perceive it is to give it attention." I did not even notice that he was grimacing and mumbling the entire time. But it's the scarcity mindset, and you've never actually had to live in scarcity. This white men who want to enjoy gaming, but there are people who literally didn't have a superhero movie that related to them until Black Panther. And then you all wanted to be like, "Why is Black Panther a big deal?" And it's like, because it's a movement and a moment and it's a beautiful film. And it's the same in gaming.
I did a cosplay expansion of Allow Me to Mansplain because the artist is like a minor cosplay celebrity around Texas. I met her at a face painting and body painting competition that I used to run. That's a completely different tangent. But so when I did research on it, it was mind-boggling how like racist and misogynistic cosplay is, and like just because they cosplay someone who might like show a more revealing outfit, like men feel entitled to anything. I was just like it was baffling to me. And that expansion in cosplay circles when they play it turns into a therapy session of like this happened to me, and then just like there's things like so in Allow Me to Mansplain, the game I designed, you start off describing something with an opening line of something that like a douchey male might say, or like a dude might say, right? And though when I wrote those lines, they meant nothing to me. Like if you learn to cover your seams better, that means nothing to me. Like but when they read it to each other, it meant all like it evoked like anger and emotion and just like Kervin, no, like you said it, but like as like a joke, but like it does get said, and it's part of the there's it made me realize how many experiences I genuinely don't understand or experience. And as like a double minority, sometimes I'm just like, it's so hard just to deal with what I'm going through. Just having like capacity to just be open to and sympathize with, I don't understand your experience. I'm sorry that like what I wrote invoked that emotion for you, but like let's talk about it.
And I think that gaming opens up that it's a good I always use stand-up comedy in my therapy sessions because it's like, I don't want to talk about when this happened to me, but what if we talked about when it happened to Taylor Tomlinson? And you'll be like, "Oh, and what did that make you remember?" And now I've tricked myself into talking to you about it. It's a way to break down barriers and have a baseline of how we communicate with one another. My DM a few months ago or a year ago, who knows, we've been playing this campaign for almost 4 years. She one time had our characters be faced with what she knew was like our nightmare, our greatest fear. And for my character, she's convinced that she killed her aunt. It was an accident, but she is convinced that that is what happened. And so she was like her aunt was just following her around. And like we're supposed to be trying to figure out stuff, and I'm distracted because my aunt is following me around talking to me. And my DM did aftercare after that, and she's like, "I want to talk about it. Was it fine? Was it mean of me to do that? Like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, I'm always up for the very human experience happening in D&D. I did yell at a Brian Iyengar one time on one of my TikToks because Burroughs End, when it's stoats playing D&D and they're just like little weasels, I'm like, stop making bad things hit those stoats. They're so cute. And she tricked me and I yelled. But I'm always, because I'm a storyteller, I'm like, I'm always up for whatever's going to make the story be better. I'm a role play player. I also happen to be really good at battles, but I crave wanting to be a role play player. But I thought about that and I was like, okay, but I am going to have to talk to people about maybe not my dead aunt B plot, but there were other things like I had betrayed a lover. I had whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to sit in this. But I also think that, again, now I'm rambling. You created a game that opens that doorway for people to share their experiences. And a lot of time we feel like we're isolated in those experiences. Like, well, I should have covered up my seams and maybe I wouldn't have gotten yelled at in the middle of Comic-Con or whatever. But it's a barrier to breed community. It's a barrier breaker to build community.
One of the biggest criticisms I got about the game is what was from women who said, like, what makes you as a man qualified to make a mansplaining game? And my initial response, which was a little snarky, was, why do you think you have like the market cornered on being spoken over or not being seen or thinking that you're not intelligent or you don't know what you're doing? That is an experience that more than just women have. Queer people have it, minorities have it. And one of the things I wanted to do with this game, yes, it's very, like, it can be very real, but at the same time, mansplaining is a thing that's going to be around for a long time. And there's so many people, when you say it, people just roll their eyes. And if I can insert one funny, one memorable, one interesting mansplaining moment that will like make you laugh, that it might make the next one more tolerable. And for me, that's worth all the grief I've gotten for the game, because at the end of the day, it's still something I love and I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great party game. I like getting a party game because we've all played like the Cards Against Humanity and the Apples to Apples or whatever, and they stop. Like, you're given a prompt, you answer that prompt with one thing and it stops. We all have a chuckle, we all move on. But with Allow Me to Mansplain, it's more, I mean, not conversation based because you're forced to like talk over your friends or whatever, but it's more like acting and it's more like role playing, and it does push it further. It pushes it further than the initial bit, and that's why I like it.
It's it shares a lot about how your brain works and how you communicate. Like I've made this TikTok multiple times where you had to mansplain how an automatic door works. And there were 4 or 5 times a guy literally said, you walk up to it and it moves. And we're like, can we please have more? And they said, no, like that's as clear as day. And then we just like sat there in awkwardness. And then they're like, Kervin, maybe you should like put like a time limit. And I said, I purposely didn't do a time limit because A, that makes people anxious. But B, it forces people to listen, both the mansplainer and the person receiving it, because it gives people an opportunity to actually listen because they didn't really know what was happening. And of course, when women would have to explain that, they'd say everything from like, you're at the grocery store and you have a cart and you walk in the building and then this happens. They talk about sensors. They talk about motion sensors. And then my favorite was when you were a kid and you pretend to use the force at the grocery store. It's still my favorite explanation of anything I've written.
That's my favorite one because it's so true. So not only being a intersectional feminist woman who runs an intersectional feminist podcast, but I am also a late in life, late blossoming queer woman, I guess we would call it. And I have ADHD all on top of it. And there are so many times where the smallest thing has made my ADHD shut down whatever you're saying and focus on whatever new stimulant happened. And I've had to ask people like, can you elaborate? Can you explain yourself again? I didn't catch part of that. I think part of my ADHD is an audio processing issue. And the amount of times that people who know me, people who don't know me, people who care about me have gone, no, I already told you and you should be listening. And it's like, oh.
That is not where I thought that was going to go. That is not where I thought that was going to go, if I'm going to be honest.
I know, because who says that to people anymore? Like, no, I told you and you should have listened.
Well, I think for me, it's more of like less like because I'm an anxious person and I have like a really good memory and I'm also like a feeler. So if someone says something that has like a really strong connotation to me, I'm gonna go through that experience and then it's gonna trail off. So I normally say something like, "Can you just rephrase that, please?" Because like it's not that I wasn't listening; it's just I was so distracted by what you said that there's no way you could possibly known because you just asking a question, right? That like that would just make me lose my mind. But uh, I'm lucky that when I ask that, people understand. Like it's not that I'm not listening; it's just it might get lost. And the longer I'm in the board game industry, and the more I play games with people, the more it's obvious that my brain just processes information differently. And how I hate when people talk about intuitiveness in board games because what's intuitive to one person, I genuinely don't think is intuitive to like me. And have like I've been told Kervin that move is suboptimal, and I was like, is it? I don't think it is. I think it's perfect. Like I'm not trying to min max my way to a win. I'm trying to like figure out a way with what I have to like come out on top. And more times than not, I do. So like I hate when people talk about intuitiveness. I also think it's people just talk it when people say intuitive, I don't think they actually mean intuitive. I think that they mean that that's just how my brain works.
Yeah. Like, that's what would have made sense to me. I thrown and have I walked away from the table after I've knocked my own chair down because my brother-in-law has beat me at, oh no, what's the train game?
Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride, which is one of my favorite games. Will I have completed 4 railroads in that game? And then my brother-in-law beat me by 3 points because he got the longest railroad. And that technicality made him win? Yes. Will I walk up to the board game the next time and be like, today all I care about is the longest railroad? No, because I like getting the cards and I like being like, okay, I can connect San Francisco to El Paso. And while I'm doing that, I can also get from Maine over here and connect it all and get these 4 railroads. So I'm going to keep all of my cards. And I guess I could be a little less competitive, but it does. It makes my brain tingle. Like it gets the good feelies in.
Oh, 1,000%. Like I always say, if I'm not holding all the cards, I'm not playing the game. Like I'm the reason why there's a hand limit because that's always my first question. What's the hand limit? And they're like Kervin. I was like, I play a lot by feel. And like, have you ever played the game Blockus or like Blockus?
No, but I'm vaguely familiar with it. I think a lot of people are familiar with it. Like I can picture the box in my head.
There's a box. There's a bunch of like Tetris like pieces, and I get accused of just like, oh, you have all these plans. It's like, no, I literally hold a piece, see if it feels right. If it doesn't, put it down, find the next one. And that's how I play games. And it confuses people, and then they get mad when I win. They're like, oh, blah blah blah. And I was like, if I changed like my feelings to like intuition or like my feeling like that, they'd be way happier than I feel. But I do feel, and I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I do feel, and I'm very like it's one of the things that I love about me and my friends like about me is that I'm very honest and I speak my feelings and I'm loved and I can sit in my emotions.
Have there been times in your career or even just as a board game lover where it really hit you that, oh, this is a direct consequence because of the lack of diversity that we see in board games or in game development?
Kind of. The one that's coming to mind is when people talk about diversity and making games more accessible. Uh, do you know what the default thing people point to for accessibility is?
For accessibility or for diversity?
Or diversity slash accessibility. Yeah, it's like to me they're very intertwined.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they revamp Clue and they make Miss Scarlet a black woman, and then they put her real big on the box to be like, we did it.
So like for me they're intertwined because so the go-to thing they talk about accessibility is they talk about color blindness. And if you look into it, color blindness mostly affects white men. So that's why when they talk about making game more diverse, more accessible, it's more accessible for them. And when people talk about accessibility, and that's the only thing they care about, it makes me just go, okay, you genuinely just don't care. Like when people talk about diversity of body types or diversity of like even just like hair color, there's games I've played where it's just like not even like it was just like brown and blonde hair people. Like there's Black Irish, right? Like you can't tell me like as someone who grew up in Texas, I grew up in one of those diversifying suburbs they always talk about, and even for me walking into a room, it's like the first thing I notice. And when you play a game, it's the first thing I notice. And it gets infuriating. And so whenever I was in the board game design forums once, and there was a white board game designer who was trying to add more diversity to his game and posted a black character, and one of them had a flat top, like a Hey Arnold '90s flat top, and the other had like a fro, and then they basically it was up for discussion which one they preferred. And board game design forums are mostly white men, and I had the ick because it was basically like a white dude asking other white dudes which hairstyle is more tolerable. And it's like things like that I'm like, I have to tell you guys this. Like I don't understand. I don't understand.
I I hate like I don't hate telling the story, but I have been the white woman explaining other things to white people in the room so many times. And a fun example, or a not so fun example, because I did not enjoy the movie, was we were watching Bad Hair on Hulu, which is a horror movie. It's a horror comedy with Nicole Byer, where a weave is possessing people, and then like horror hijinks ensue. And I was watching it with a room full of white people, and they just kept asking ignorant questions. And I was like, what? And they'd be like, I don't understand how this would happen. And I was like, so then I'm explaining weaves or whatever. And then I'm explaining like people who are coming on screen who are like in a different world or living color or whatever. And I'm like, hey, everyone, I know that we're in Ohio. I get it. But have you ever turned on the TV and seen anyone who doesn't look like you? Or are you only watching 19 and Counting on TLC? Like, what are we doing? When you told me that it was just like white men going back and forth on which hairstyle was tolerable, I was like, oh my gosh. It again makes the person that they're trying to quote unquote like respect or probably just appease, it still just makes them a commodity to the game and to all of it.
I made a TikTok once talking about how there are people who say they've never like played a board game with like a minority person before. And I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, I guess if you want the experience, hit me up, let's go. Why not? Right. And um I I took someone up on that offer, and we played a game, and the first words were, I've never played with a gay before. And I was like,
That's so
oh,
sad.
I was just like, that, my response was that of, A, right? Because, like, it's not, like, you're not wearing, like, yeah. So, and then the entire time, they just kept on saying things. And I just remember saying, like, that's probably why you have it, is because you, and then, like, it's not my job. One of the biggest differences, so I've diversity in the board game industry. There's, like, the main thought is, to like uplift voices and to include other people who are like marginalized. But the board game industry specifically, a lot of it, very minimal of it goes towards like allyship. And for me, I have the opposite experience of a lot of other BIPOC people in the industry because they've had other BIPOC people reach out. I've had allies reach out to me and have been very beneficial, like in my journey. And so I'm not saying, so my approach when I talk about diversity isn't like, I'm going to change your mind. I think you're evil. It's more of just like, this is my story. We are all grown. If you care, here's a different side of the story. And if you want to listen, cool. If you don't, hey, that's totally fine. But I'm not here to engage to change your mind because I'm trying to make games for people. That is
Yeah.
like my one priority. And I and people think that you need to engage in more conversation. Like, I don't gotta do nothing. I don't.
One of my or co-creators, Julia Washington, we went hard in our voice messages one time because someone dared to say the like, have you tried leaning in? Did you just lean in? And I'm like, why am I always leaning? My back is like crooked. Why can't I just be accepted? And if I'm telling you 2 plus 2 is 4, please don't get out the calculator. Like, sorry, I didn't put it out for counters as you and leaned in harder. And I do feel that we do put a lot of pressure on other people to fix that problem for us, where it's like, well, if it's a problem for you and women aren't in the gaming industry enough, why aren't you putting women in the gaming industry enough? And I'm like, because I don't have the time to teach all of the women that I know D&D. Like, there are so many books. There are just so many books that I would have to read.
And I feel like there's also people like better equipped for that. Like, I don't have the patience to sit down and be like, let's sit with your feelings. I'm just like, I've done that my entire life. And I don't have, as an adult, I'm just like, it's funny because on TikTok, a lot of my mutuals were like, oh, Kervin, you're so blunt. You speak your mind. And then they meet me in real life and they're like, oh, you really calm yourself down through your TikToks. I'm like, yeah, because a lot of it has to do with like, am I comfortable with you? Do I feel safe with you? And if my feelings won't let me, then I won't. So like, it takes a lot for me to just be able to like speak my mind and just know that like it's being accepted and taken the right way without having to quantify or qualify everything I say.
Yeah. My new approach is it's just so easy to do it that there's no reason why you can't. Gen Con recently started offering for your badge pronoun ribbons so that when you were playing with other people that you had not met, you could respect their pronouns. And I pick one up. I put on my she, her, hers pronoun ribbon every year and I move on. Well, this year they let you print it on your badge. Like, you could change your pronouns into your profile and they would just print them. So someone in my group was trying to rile up the conservatives in my group with these ribbons. And they're like, don't you need a ribbon? Don't you need a ribbon? Blah, blah, blah. You know, good old white man Matt Rife value comedy we're having right now. Just live right in front of me. And they get to me and I go, I don't need a ribbon. And I just pull up my badge and I go, I had them print my pronouns. I paid attention when they sent the email that we could. And a person in my party went, well, why do you have to if that doesn't apply to you? I go, it does apply to me because it applies to all of us. We all have pronouns. This was one way I could make this community safer for people who you're going to tell them that their pronouns don't matter or don't make sense or aren't grammar correct or whatever.
My favorite thing to do, there's a lot of like little things I do when I like meet like my mutuals for the first time, just to make sure that like I think they are who they like say they are and like my feelings are right. My favorite thing ever is like, I'm 5'2", right? And if you see any videos from PAX, all of them are huge. All of them are well over 6 feet. And so one of the things I always make a point to do is like when we're walking somewhere, like put my hand on their lower back because it literally is like right here for me. Like, and if they freak out, that's a pretty good indicator of like, hey, like maybe I'm not who you thought you were. I'm not hitting on you. It's just more just like, oh, hey, hi, nice to meet you. You know what I mean? And there's so many men who are insecure about the most random things that don't matter.
And then, because I had heard years of the Natalie, why do you honor the pronoun system at Gen Con comment, I lost it. I had not lost it yet at Gen Con, but I was like, well, I guess here it is. And I went, I have told you that it is one of the easiest way that you can respect people, and you just choose to not do it. You choose to not do it. You choose to tell me that you don't care that those people live a life that they live and live a life the way that they quote unquote choose to live. And yet you won't do the one simple thing to make sure that they feel safe. You would rather people feel unsafe so you are comfortable.
Well, I also am just not a fan of when people talk about, like, don't tell me a space is like a safe space. Just let me feel that it is. And you can't, and like I'm not a big fan of that, just because there's things that are, there's so many people who just say things, and in the board game industry, it's an industry full of dreamers. That's why there's games, right? And at the end of the day, it's just like, show me that you care. And there was like a one of my mutuals, he was just like, Kervin, I want to put you on my shoulders. And I was like, okay, sure. He's like, no, you know what? You can say no. I'm like, again, it's fine. I don't care. I genuinely don't care, right? And so, but he's like 6'2", and I have a 24-inch inseam. So unless I'm standing on a chair, he is on the ground, like, before he lifts me up. And so he went and did it, and he like walked, he like paraded me around like an aisle or two, and he was so gentle. He was so like methodical. He was so, it was like something I didn't expect, because he's just like this big burly guy with a beard, and he was like super, like, he was checking in with me. He's like, "Are you okay? I can put you down. Are you sure?" And I was like, "Where was this all my life?" Like, it was super sweet and unexpected.
If that guy's listening, I definitely want to be friends. Like, if you're listening, because my dream is to just be Yoda backpacked through crowded areas. Like, just please put me on your back like I am Yoda, because I am 5'4", maybe 5'5". So, like, please just attach me and let's go. No, but that's a great point. It's like, stop telling me that I'm safe when I'm telling you that I'm not feeling safe. Because eventually I say, the pronoun issue also makes me feel unsafe as a person who's confided in you that I'm exploring queer options with my sexuality. So it's a real slippery slope about where your intolerance is going to end up. And then you're going to have to lay awake at night being like, am I intolerant to someone I love? And the answer is going to be like, yeah, you are.
One of my best guy friends, I remember I was visiting him in Nashville. He's like, Kervin, we're going to watch the soccer game at my favorite bar. And I said, okay, let's go. Sure. We walked into the bar, and I did not feel safe. Like, I walked in, I heard slurs. There were like no other minorities in the bar. There's very few women in the bar. I just could not enjoy myself. And I knew that, like, if I sat down and had a drink, I wouldn't be able to, like, enjoy his company or give him the majority of my attention. And we like got halfway to the bar, and I said, hey, is there any way we can just do another bar? And he said, sure. And then we went to like another bar, and then we had a good time. And later the next day we talked about it. And I told him, I really appreciate that we didn't have to have that conversation at the bar to be like, what do you mean you're not safe? Why don't you feel safe around people who are not making you feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he's just like, he's like, I trust you. I assumed you had like a different reason, and you talk about it when it's ready. And to me, like, that's the sign of like an ally and someone who just genuinely cares, is just not having to like question, say, I feel uncomfortable, and then just wanting to talk about it and justify whether or not you're comfortable. Just, I'm uncomfortable. Can you just leave the situation? And I don't know why that's such a big deal. Or that's hard for people.
There are so many instances where marginalized voices and marginalized people are asked to endure. An example in my own life is I have marked certain men, maybe that we know through various activities around town, as unsafe. And when I'm making plans with you outside of the activity where we're all gathering and it's a public space, so I don't have any control over who gets to come, if I'm making plans with you, I feel like I should be able to say, I don't want that person to be invited. They're unsafe. And instead it's, well, he's having a hard time. Can't you just feel? And it's like, now I'm not coming because it's a waste of my money. Because now I'm just mad the entire time.
And time. Not even like money. Like, I'm more upset about just like having to like tolerate them. I don't want to have to tolerate someone when I'm supposed to be like enjoying someone's company. Like
Mm-hmm.
I literally almost just quoted the name of your podcast. Like I was so close. I was like, nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it.
I love it. Nothing makes me more happy than when someone just uses tolerate naturally. I'm like, ooh, yes. But yeah, it's just like I don't want to get the hours that it takes me to get cute and then to travel to somewhere to sit there and be like, why is this person here? And then you tell me because it's not a big bad or it's not a big deal that he's here. And I'm like, but he's made disparaging remarks to me, or he sexually harassed one of our friends in front of us, or he stalked us. Like, why? And it's like, well, you know, he's just a little awkward. And I'm like, awkward people still kill.
He's awkward is the excuse. That's the excuse. You might as well just say he's cute and it's fine. Like it's the same thing. Like he has an arm, cool. Like
I had a man come up, ask me, can I talk to you about this? And it was something that happened to another friend of mine. And he ended up saying, he was like, I just feel really bad for the guy because it's just really apparent that he's not as socially intelligent and as socially adept as all of us. And I was like, hey, that was a really kind stance to take. I go, I don't get the privilege of taking that stance because men who get the benefit of the doubt because they're awkward or they're just not like on the up and up of what it means to treat other people or whatever, they get angry at me and then I disappear. And then you won't see me again until my photo's on Netflix. Like, get your outfit ready for my Netflix murder documentary. And he really went. He was like, oh. And I was like, yeah. I go, I'm over feeling like I deserve to be harmed because someone else is having like a mental block on what it means to be a person in a group.
even just like believing my experience. The amount of times where like that's one of the most surprising things is that when I talk about my experiences in the industry, people are like, well, that's not my experience. I'm like, cool, you're not making a video about not your experience. I'm talking about like my experiences in the industry, whether or not like I didn't think people would think I'm lying, but like why do I have to justify if I said this happened? Just like and it doesn't change like it's nothing crazy. It's just something that I noticed and I have to explain I have to record everything for you. Like I don't understand.
Well, and because you know we're on TikTok, people are submitting their doorbell, their like Nest video doorbells to be like, yeah, he screamed at me and then he punched the wall. So I threw something at him to get him out of my house, and the cops are like, and it's like, well, here's my video, and they're like, hands are tied. Let him back in your house.
It's infuriating.
It's infuriating. Well, I am going to move us to our uplifting traditions onto all the men I've tolerated before. We like to give everyone a takeaway from our experience. Like, if you had to learn anything about what it meant to be fighting for diversity in the gaming community, this is what you should take away from it. And then we like to manifest and we like to hope that eventually all of the heavy things that we talked about get better. So as a person who is working so hard to fight for diversity in the gaming community, what is your big takeaway? Like, what is your driving force?
Being open to the fact that people might actually care. In diversity circles, because of experiences and how you've been treated and the longer you've been in this, it's really easy to get jaded. It's really easy to be like us versus them. And I genuinely believe that when it comes to like diversity spaces and growing diversity in order to get to where I hope the board game industry will go, you can't ignore cishet white males because they control how long it's going to feel awkward for us, and they're going to be the and then they also control like whether or not they're going to fight for us with their circles because there are tons of circles in the board game industry I'm never going to be a part of that I'm not invited to because I choose not to be because they choose me not to be, and like but there are people who believe in me and believe in my message who fight for me in ways that I never expected or dreamed of. And being open to the idea that someone who acknowledges they will never understand your experience, want you to be here. And I believe that I genuinely believe with all of my being that like there is a space for me in the board game industry. There's a community of people who want me to be here and to be and to succeed. And I just had to be open because there's so many. There's been five DMs I got from mutuals who were like, "I would love to talk to you about like the future of your business." I'm like, whatever. It's really easy to ignore those, right? But I took all of them, and every single one of them drastically changed my trajectory in the industry, and put me in connections with people who I literally talk to every day now. Like my friends have been replaced with all TikTok friends, and we like and like I'm sure you noticed the day that when you share like a video via text message, it also shares like in the app now.
Yeah.
Annoying.
Annoying. TikTok, take that off. I know my sister sent me this TikTok. I'm opening it right away.
Ditto. It's not like it's just waiting there forever.
God. No, I do. I'm like, what is this stupid fucking notification?
So mad.
So bad, TikTok. It's because they want us to stay in the app. And I'm like, I'm already dedicating days to you, TikTok.
Ditto.
I think my biggest takeaway is a lot of people keep talking about the gaming, like gaming is a community, gaming is fun, gaming is safe. And I think my biggest takeaway is, or the thing that I would continue to add to that sentence is, gaming is a community if you allow it to be a community. Gaming is a community if we're all having fun. Gaming is a community if we all feel like we get to share or have equal time or whatever.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
What would you like your manifestation to be? What do you hope for coming forward?
So the goal was not to break even on my first game because it was a party game. I acknowledged it was a polarizing party game. And I had the game made in America as well because people say you can't have your game be made in America. I'm like, watch me. And so I did. And my goal was to always build a community to where I'll break even on my second game. And so my second game is a marshmallow cultist board game where you have these marshmallows who travel the world to find this mallow flower, and they do this fire ceremony. But some of the marshmallows are afraid they're going to burn down your home, you being animals. So they come to you with water guns, and they say, help us save your home. So the game has these really cute animals with like super soakers, and you're shooting them at marshmallows.
I know, like literally, like people are like, "Oh, Natalie's melting," and it's because I love animals and I love like fluffy little magic marshmallow people, and I love cults. Like I love learning about cults. It's perfect. It's a perfect game, and I'm not even going to manifest that you break even. I'm going to manifest that like I see it in my board game bar because someone bought it and was like, D20 needs this, and I bought myself a copy, and then I'm donating you a copy. Like, I just like want to manifest that for the rest of my life and for the rest of my Gen Cons and for the rest of my gaming experience, I'm running it. TikTok's bringing me to you, to people like you, people like me, people who are open to online friends, and people who just want to make the community put its money where its mouth is and actually be a community. And I can't wait to see the art for it. I know that I've seen you like cutting out pieces and stuff. Did you get to play test it at PAX?
So I play tested it at Gen Con. So at Gen Con, I played it with like two groups of people, all content creators, all very different styles of gamers, including TTRPGs, just to kind of get like the general, like, does this game work? Yes, it worked. There was a lot of issues. And then at PAX, I thought I fixed all the issues, and they loved it. And when people talk about like building community, like people don't think you can build a community with content creators, and that's what I'm doing. And Board Game TikTok is just a wonderful place to be. And they played the game, and they're like, people are gonna be sick of me talking about your game. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait.
No, I love it. go ahead and while we wrap up, plug all of the places that we can find you. And then all of those will be linked in the show notes too. So people just have to scroll and it'll be easy.
So I'm mostly on TikTok. It's 4ygames .flan because I needed to have access to the fun sounds because the business accounts, you can't have fun sounds. And there is no point, there is points. It hurts my soul to not be able to do trendy videos. Not that I do them very often, but I like the option.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, just 4ygames.flan on TikTok and just 4ygames.com.
All right. And everyone, you know where I am. It's all in the show notes. Natalie K124 on TikTok, Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram. A lot of things are happening on Patreon. We had a brief conversation on this episode about what it means to like put on your public TikTok podcast face and what it means to really pop off. And the Misogyny Meltdown is a series of content that you're only getting as a Patreon member. And it's where I'm going to get ugly about some of the issues that are affecting everyday misogyny and all of us. So it's a lot of fun. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including rolling up to a game night just to be told, oh, it's just because your brain doesn't work the way that the game wants it to work. Smiling is for joy.